Today, you're going to hear a true story, so absurd it feels like a lie. But relax, because here, the strange is what helps you fall asleep. Imagine for a moment a parallel world hidden beneath our feet. A vast, silent realm where time seems to flow differently, as if space itself had chosen to hide away from the surface, far from hurried eyes and restless voices of our daily lives. A realm that, though discovered more than a century ago, was lost in time, forgotten, as if its existence were a secret kept by the Earth's very shadows. In the 19th century, a time marked by great transformations and discoveries, with locomotives tearing across landscapes, ships crossing oceans, and scientists unveiling the mysteries of nature, a group of explorers stumbled upon something that defied all logic and expectation. They found a passage into an underground world, as real as the room you are in now, yet so different it seemed to belong to another universe. Tonight, in this quiet space, we will journey together into that hidden realm. You don't need to hurry, nor try to understand everything at once. Just allow the story to unfold slowly, like a whisper drifting through the night silence. Let its words guide your thoughts, and let the mystery cradle you like a gentle breeze brushing against leaves. Do not expect easy answers, nor neat conclusions. This is an invitation to behold the unknown with calm eyes, to feel the weight of forgotten memory, and the subtle glow of something lost between the ages. Because sometimes, it is in doubt and in silence that we find the deepest stories. And if, at some point, your eyes begin to grow heavy, if a soft tiredness approaches, know that this is the perfect moment to let yourself drift. This is the place where the strange meets peace, where mystery doesn't unsettle, but soothes. Before we begin our descent into the underground, it's worth remembering that stories like this are not only about what was seen or found, but also about what was left behind, about the forgettings that shape our world, about the secrets that only time can reveal. So, take a deep breath. Feel the air flowing in and out, steady and calm. Let curiosity blend with tranquility, and prepare yourself for a walk among the shadows and lights of a forgotten realm. When you are ready, we'll take the first step into this world that lives beneath our feet, waiting silently to be rediscovered. The 19th century was an era of profound change and silent transformation, when the world seemed to be awakening from a long slumber, yet still wrapped in mysteries that science and reason could not fully unravel. As cities grew, railways cut across landscapes, and steamships sailed through seas once thought unreachable, human curiosity expanded in every direction, as if the earth itself were an ancient book, waiting to be read page by page. Imagine this setting for a moment. A time when electric lights were still rare, and the night cloaked cities in near total darkness, allowing the imagination to wander freely through alleys, forests, and hidden caves. It was an age when the boundaries between the known and the unknown blurred, when the natural and the supernatural danced side by side in the collective imagination. At the same time, great empires sought to expand their dominions, and with them, exploration of the planet took on a new meaning. Expeditions ventured into remote territories, driven both by the thirst for power and the genuine desire to understand what lay beyond the visible horizon. Maps were drawn, borders redrawn, yet there remained places that seemed to resist every attempt to be fully revealed. In this context, the idea of an underground world was not merely a fairy tale or a distant fantasy. It was a possibility many believed could be real. Books, newspapers, and travelers' accounts spoke of mysterious caves, secret passages, and hidden peoples beneath the Earth's surface. Some of these stories were met with skepticism, others with fascination and fear, but all of them fed a latent desire to discover something beyond what the eyes could see. At the same time, science was advancing in astonishing ways, unveiling secrets of physics, chemistry, and biology. Yet the 19th century was still a moment when imagination and reality coexisted almost indistinguishably, allowing ancient myths to intertwine with new discoveries. The underground thus became fertile ground for this mixture of science, fantasy, and hope. It is in this ambiguous setting that our explorers appear, men and women who, perhaps driven by curiosity or by a deeper calling, chose to face the shadows of the unknown. They were not merely seeking gold, precious stones, or tangible riches. They longed to understand what might exist beyond what the surface allowed them to see. And so, in this century of contrasts, where the light of reason began to illuminate dark corners, yet where the night still reigned in many places, the discovery of a subterranean realm seemed to be the key to a new era of knowledge, or at the very least, an invitation to see the world with different eyes, more attentive to what hides in the shadows. As you listen, you may begin to feel time itself slowing down, as though that distant century were right here beside you, sharing its mystery in a low voice, almost a whisper. There is no need to rush to understand everything now. Simply let the words paint slow images, like smoke rising and fading, carrying with it the promise of a secret waiting to be revealed. If you close your eyes for a moment, you might even sense the atmosphere of that time, the scent of wood burning in fireplaces, the distant murmur of voices in a forgotten village, the muffled sound of footsteps on ancient stones. This is the atmosphere that surrounds the story we are about to tell, and it is in this silence that the subterranean kingdom waits to emerge, slowly, before your senses. Even before the 19th century brought its light and shadows, there were stories that wound silently through the voices of time, whispering of a kingdom hidden not on some distant horizon, but beneath the very ground on which we walk. These stories, woven into the ancient legends of peoples who lived centuries ago, carried the first clues of this subterranean world. Fragments that resisted the erosion of time and that, perhaps, are the true gateways to the unknown. It is fascinating to think that, long before scientific expeditions or grand cartographies, humanity already seemed to sense something beyond the visible surface. Tales passed down from generation to generation spoke of eternal caves, silent underground rivers, and stone cities concealed in the planet's depths. Some of these stories carried a tone of warning, others of promise. All of them, however, bore an aura of mystery that captured the imagination. These legends did not come from a single place or culture. From the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia to the indigenous peoples of many parts of the world, the idea of a realm beneath our feet was always present, like a constant shadow in the backdrop of human existence. In some accounts, these underground places were sacred sanctuaries, inhabited by wise and ancient beings, guardians of forgotten knowledge. In others, they were dangerous worlds, labyrinths where travelers were lost forever. As centuries passed, these stories took on new forms, adapting to the beliefs and needs of each age. Some reached written records, preserved in weathered manuscripts, in myths told around the fire, or in drawings left on cave walls. And though they were often regarded as folklore or fantasy, there was something within them that transcended mere storytelling. By the 19th century, as science began to question the world with new tools, these ancient accounts drew the attention of a few curious minds. They noticed that even without concrete evidence, the legends shared common elements, as though they spoke of the same real place, hidden somewhere within the earth. The idea of a subterranean kingdom, once confined to imagination, began to take on more tangible contours. These ancient stories were not merely tales meant to frighten children or explain the unexplainable. They were, in truth, echoes of deep memories, perhaps even vestiges of a reality the surface world preferred to conceal. Perhaps, in the silence of caves and in the cold of the earth, something had remained alive, invisible to the hurried eyes of modernity. As you listen, let these ancient voices blend with the quiet rhythm of your breathing. Feel how the stories unfurl like tapestries of times long past, inviting you to explore not only what was spoken, but also what was felt and dreamed. Imagine the long nights, lit only by faint flames, where the telling of stories was a ritual of connection with the unseen. And it is here, at this crossroads between myth and reality, that the story of the subterranean kingdom begins to take concrete shape. For despite being forgotten or dismissed, these legends were the light that guided the steps of those who, in the 19th century, dared to descend into the depths. In the heart of the 19th century, when the world still kept its mysteries beneath heavy veils, a figure emerged whose curiosity and persistence would prove decisive in unveiling an ancient secret, the subterranean kingdom. He, or perhaps she, for stories sometimes become imprecise echoes, was someone both ordinary and extraordinary at the same time, an explorer of the soul and of the earth, driven as much by the desire to know as by a subtle intuition, almost a calling from the depths. Little is known with certainty about this person, and perhaps that is one of the reasons why their story remains wrapped in shadow and fascination. Some accounts speak of a self-taught scientist who spent countless nights poring over ancient texts, forgotten maps, and listening to the stories of villagers living near a remote mountain range. Others say it was a weary adventurer, tired of surface travels, seeking a deeper meaning for their existence. What we do know with some clarity is that this discoverer possessed something many do not: the courage to look at the invisible and walk toward it, even when the path seemed made only of darkness and silence. The entrance to the subterranean realm was hidden, camouflaged by nature. Perhaps a narrow fissure between ancient rocks, a deep cave guarded by time, or a passage that revealed itself only to those daring enough to believe. The journey to find this entrance was not easy. It demanded days, perhaps weeks of trekking through rugged terrain, sleepless nights beneath a starry sky, and the constant company of a cold wind whispering incomprehensible secrets. At some point, somewhere between anxiety and hope, the discoverer felt they were not alone, as if the very ground pulsed beneath their feet, guarding a hidden life, ready to be revealed. When the passage finally opened, it was as if a new reality emerged, unveiling a world made of shadows, faint lights, and deep echoes. The silence was almost absolute, broken only by the distant sound of dripping water or the murmur of an underground stream. It was a place where time seemed to flow differently, more slowly, as though the earth itself wished to protect its secrets. This discoverer, armed with lanterns, rudimentary maps, and a quiet determination, was the first to set foot in this realm so many believed existed only in stories. Each step was a revelation, an invitation to understand a world that seemed to defy every known law. Yet there was also a sense of reverence and respect, as if the explorer knew they were standing before something greater than themselves. Their narrative, preserved in letters, journals, and later accounts, carried details both impressive and unsettling. It spoke of endless corridors, stone cities carved with a care that defied time, and inhabitants whose lives seemed tied to an ancient wisdom, almost forgotten by surface humanity. All of this made the discovery not merely a geographic feat, but a journey into the unknown of existence itself. Yet this story was never meant to be a simple tale of heroic adventure. It is, above all, an invitation to look inward, to the earth, yes, but also to ourselves, to the depths we guard in silence. Because perhaps the subterranean kingdom is also a reflection of the mystery that lives within each of us, a place where the visible and the invisible weave together in a slow dance. And as you take in these words, imagine the chill of stone beneath the discoverer's hands, the weight of darkness enveloping their body, and the faint lantern light sketching shadows that seem to tell forgotten stories. Allow this atmosphere to guide you, like a calm breeze caressing the mind. The entrance to the subterranean kingdom did not present itself as an ordinary door, nor as a dramatic portal opened by human hands. It was, instead, a silent secret guarded by the earth itself, camouflaged among ancient rocks, twisted roots, and shadows that danced to the sound of the wind. To find it required patience, attention to the subtlest details, and an almost poetic sensitivity to perceive what hurried eyes would easily overlook. The place chosen by nature for this passage was a remote region, difficult to access and rarely visited. Perhaps a mountain range forgotten by time, where the sky met the earth in an abrupt and silent embrace. Or perhaps a hidden valley between cliffs, where sunlight barely touched the ground, creating the perfect setting for keeping secrets. There, the entrance lay discreet, waiting for those with the courage and patience to unravel its mysteries. Reaching this point was not simple. The trails were winding, wrapped in mist and silence. The air carried the damp scent of soil and wet stone, and the sound of footsteps seemed to dissolve into the vastness of the surroundings. It was a path that demanded not only physical endurance but also a slow, almost meditative rhythm, so as not to disturb the delicate balance of that place. The first to reach the entrance had to learn to listen to what nature whispered. The murmur of trees, the whisper of water flowing beneath the earth, the distant echo that seemed to call them onward. In this way, they discovered a narrow fissure, almost imperceptible, hidden among rocks covered in moss and lichen. A small portal, which did not invite through grandeur, but through the promise held in its discretion. The access through this passage was not easy. One had to descend, often crawling, through narrow and damp corridors where natural light quickly disappeared. The cold grew sharper, and the silence became absolute, heavy, as though the very air were laden with ancient secrets. Each step demanded care, for the ground was uneven and treacherous. Beyond the physical challenge, there was also an invisible one, as if the subterranean kingdom itself resisted intrusion. The silence, the cold, and the darkness imposed a kind of reverence, a need to move with caution and humility. It was not a place for haste, nor for those seeking mere adventure. It was a place for those willing to listen, to observe, to be transformed by the experience. This entrance, so simple and yet so profound, held within it the threshold between two worlds, the known and the unknown, light and shadow, the conscious and the unconscious. To cross it was a symbolic act, a descent not only into the depths of the earth, but also into the depths of the self. And as you hear these words, try to feel that slow and silent transition. Imagine yourself descending gently through a narrow corridor, sensing the change in the air, in the scent, in the silence that envelopes everything. Let this image cradle your thoughts, slowing them, preparing them for what is to come. Upon crossing the narrow entrance, a new world slowly unfolded before the eyes of the first explorers, a silent, profound universe that seemed to breathe in its own time, far removed from the haste and noise of the surface. The first impressions of the subterranean kingdom were at once unsettling and fascinating, as though one were standing inside a dream woven of stone, shadow, and faint light. As their footsteps entered the corridors, a sense of reverence filled the space, as if the stone walls held not only physical structure but the memory of countless centuries. The air was cool, damp, carrying the scent of wet earth and ancient minerals, an aroma blending with a near-absolute silence, broken only by the faint dripping of water somewhere in the distance. The walls, carved by invisible hands or by time itself, displayed delicate reliefs and patterns resembling forgotten symbols, designs that seemed to pulse with a quiet energy, inviting contemplation. The lantern light danced across the uneven surfaces, casting shadows that moved slowly, as though alive, guardians of millennia-old secrets. The vastness of the space was astonishing. In some places, immense halls opened, their ceilings so high they vanished into the gloom, supported by pillars resembling the trunks of ancient trees, both strong and graceful. In others, narrow, winding passages suggested that this kingdom had been shaped to protect, conceal, and preserve something precious. The silence, far from oppressive, carried a meditative quality, inviting the explorers to slow their thoughts and sink into deep contemplation. It was as though time itself had reduced its pace, allowing every instant to be felt more intensely, every detail to reveal itself with greater care. Beyond forms and textures, there was a sense of presence, a subtle vibration in the air, as though the kingdom itself were alive, watchful, observing those who dared to enter. It was not fear, but rather a silent respect, a delicate connection between visitor and visited, between the known and the unknown. These first impressions were recorded in journals and accounts that spoke not only of what was seen, but of what was felt, of the contained emotion, the silent awe, and the hidden beauty. For in that place, the ordinary became extraordinary, and the invisible took on tangible form. And as you listen, imagine yourself walking through these ancient corridors, feeling the cold, solid stone beneath your feet, gazing at the walls that seem to tell stories without words. Let the silence envelop you, and let the mystery soothe you, like a lullaby whispered by the earth. Upon entering the subterranean realm, the most intriguing discovery was not merely the physical space, but the living presence of a society that flourished in silence, hidden from the eyes of the outside world. The inhabitants of this place were not empty shadows or forgotten echoes. They were real people, with their own rights, customs, and a social organization that defied any expectation of what it meant to exist far from the light of the sun. These dwellers, whose faces and stories were delicately recorded by the first explorers, revealed a complexity and depth that suggested a rich culture, formed over generations, adapted to an environment that, though challenging, offered both safety and meaning. They lived in close-knit communities, where cooperation was essential for survival, and where each individual had a clear role, a function that resonated with the rhythm of the realm. The subterranean society seemed to balance tradition and necessity, weaving a delicate web of relationships and responsibilities. There were leaders who guided with quiet wisdom, sages who preserved ancestral knowledge, and workers who maintained the structures, the inner plantations, and the water sources. Decisions were made collectively, with respect for every voice, reflecting a model of coexistence different from that found on the surface. The inhabitants possessed a language of their own, composed of soft sounds and precise gestures, adapted to the acoustics of their environment and to the need for communication without disturbing the sacred silence. Their clothing, made of natural fibers and dyed with pigments extracted from surrounding roots and minerals, was simple yet carefully crafted, reflecting a deep connection to the world around them. Daily life was marked by rituals that celebrated subterranean existence, festivals of light crafted with glowing crystals, moments of collective meditation to the sound of running water, and ceremonies that reinforced the bond between the community and the realm they inhabited. These rituals were not mere celebrations, but ways of maintaining balance between humankind and the environment, a harmonious dance between being and place. Moreover, the subterranean society seemed to value knowledge in a singular way. Libraries made of stone-carved tablets, collections of artifacts, and oral traditions preserved a rich history that included not only their own origins but also mysterious connections with the world above. This legacy was transmitted with care, passed from generation to generation, keeping the living memory of the realm intact. Their social organization also reflected a profound understanding of nature and time. They respected cycles, invisible seasons unknown to the surface, and adapted their activities to those subtle rhythms. It was a life in harmony with their surroundings, one that demanded patience, attentiveness, and constant listening. And as you listen, imagine these people walking silently through their corridors, sharing stories by the faint glow of crystals, caring for one another and for the space they called home. Feel the calm of this coexistence, the gentle strength that keeps a community united in silence. Allow this image to embrace you, slowing your thoughts and deepening your sense of connection with something ancient and serene. For in coming to know this society, we begin to understand that the subterranean realm is not only a physical place, but a state of existence, a quiet invitation to reflect on who we are and how we live. As you walk deeper into the subterranean realm, the eyes begin to unveil an aspect as striking as the living presence of its inhabitants, the architecture that sustains this hidden existence. These structures are not mere shelters, but true works of art and engineering, shaped by the patience of time and the wisdom of a culture that found in stone and darkness the raw material to create a world of its own. The subterranean architecture is a silent testimony to human ingenuity in the face of adversity. The walls, carved with precision, display organic forms that seem to have been born from the earth itself, blending harmoniously with the natural environment. There is no haste in their lines. Everything was made to endure, to resist the weight of time and the ground above, and to reflect a sense of beauty that transcends mere functionality. The spaces are wide and varied. Grand halls open like sacred chambers, illuminated by crystals that capture and amplify the scarce light, creating a gentle glow that seems to pulse with life itself. In these places, the walls bear reliefs that narrate ancient stories, symbols that speak of a shared past and of a profound connection between humankind and the subterranean. There are also winding corridors that snake like veins throughout the realm, linking different areas and maintaining a silent fluidity between spaces. These pathways are carefully designed to facilitate movement, protect against possible dangers, and preserve the atmosphere of tranquility that permeates the entire place. The construction of homes reveals a special care for comfort and functionality. Each dwelling is adapted to the needs of its inhabitants, with areas for rest, work, and community life, always planned to make the most of the natural resources available. The use of local materials, polished stone, sturdy woods, and crystals, demonstrates a deep respect for the environment and a constant search for balance. Beyond the dwellings, there are spaces dedicated to subterranean agriculture, where plants adapted to the dim light are cultivated to sustain the community. These green areas, carefully illuminated by crystals and filtered natural light, bring a breath of life and color to the realm, symbolizing the inseparable bond between humankind and nature, even beneath the earth. Temples and spaces for meditation are also an essential part of this architecture, places of silence and reflection, where the inhabitants connect with the mystery of the realm and seek answers to the great questions of existence. The simplicity of these spaces contrasts with the symbolic richness of their adornments, inviting deep and serene contemplation. In observing these structures, it is impossible not to feel the presence of time, not as an enemy that erodes, but as a partner that shapes and perfects. Every stone, every curve, every detail seems charged with meaning, as if the subterranean realm itself were a living work, in constant transformation and adaptation. And as you listen, imagine yourself walking through these stone corridors, feeling the cool texture of the walls, hearing the soft echo of your steps, and watching the light dance upon the crystals. Let this image wrap you in calm, slowing the mind and opening space for mystery. For more than a mere physical structure, the architecture of the realm is an expression of the spirit that inhabits it, a harmony between humankind, the earth, and time, inviting reflection and silence. As you venture deeper into the subterranean realm, it is not only the stones and the architecture that capture attention, but also the surprising variety of life that pulses silently in the shadows. The fauna and flora of this hidden world form a delicate and complex ecosystem, adapted to conditions that may at first seem inhospitable, yet reveal a subtle and fascinating biodiversity, a reflection of life's tenacity even in the most unexpected places. The vegetation, though far from the exuberance of the surface, reveals a quiet and understated beauty. Plants that thrive in twilight, with broad leaves of deep green, capture the faintest light filtered through natural crystals or diffused sources created by the inhabitants themselves. Some release gentle, almost imperceptible fragrances that drift through the damp air, creating an atmosphere that feels almost magical, where silence mingles with delicate essences. Many of these plants possess unique adaptations, roots that penetrate stone, leaves that gather dew from droplets falling off the rocks, flowers that glow softly in the darkness like small natural beacons. They are forms of life that defy our understanding, reminding us that nature always finds a way to endure, even far from the sun. As for the fauna, it is equally astonishing. Small creatures, silent in their movements and keen in their gaze, roam the corridors and open spaces of the realm. Some are insects with translucent, almost ethereal bodies, feeding on the adapted vegetation. Others, larger beings with thick fur or scales that catch the scarce light, move with grace and discretion, careful not to disturb the harmony of the environment. There are also animals that seem to possess heightened senses for darkness. Large eyes that capture the faintest glimmers, antennae that detect the vibrations of the air, or abilities that guide them through the underground currents. These are beings that live in balance with the realm, integral to the natural cycle that sustains life at every level. The inhabitants of the subterranean world, in turn, cultivate and protect this biodiversity with reverence. They understand that its flora and fauna are essential not only to their physical survival, but also to the spiritual balance of the place. Thus, careful practices of cultivation and conservation are part of daily life, ensuring that nothing is taken in excess and that life continues its tranquil course. As you listen, allow yourself to imagine this delicate tapestry of life, the softly glowing leaves, the silent creatures gliding through the shadows, and the subtle fragrances that fill the air. Feel how this subterranean world, despite its apparent austerity, pulses with serene vitality, a reminder that life, at its core, is resilience and beauty. This intimate connection between living beings and their environment reinforces the idea that the subterranean realm is not merely a physical refuge, but a space where harmony between humankind and nature is fully and consciously lived. In the profound silence of the subterranean realm, among stones and corridors illuminated by faint crystals, lie mysteries that defy common understanding. Technologies and artifacts whose very existence raises more questions than answers, revealing a knowledge that seems to transcend both time and space. These objects, often discovered in temples and protected chambers, carry an aura of fascination and reverence, as if they were fragments of forgotten wisdom. They were not noisy machines or obvious mechanisms, but delicate instruments, objects whose function eluded superficial logic and demanded a deeper perception. Some appeared to channel subtle energies, perhaps drawing upon natural sources of power within the realm itself, while others bore enigmatic inscriptions, symbols that seemed to pulse with an inner light, almost alive. These artifacts astonished with their complexity and harmony, crafted from unknown materials, glowing with a steady, gentle brilliance, their structure suggesting an advanced technology seamlessly integrated with the surrounding nature. They were objects that did not impose themselves, but instead invited contemplation, as if they were tools meant to expand consciousness rather than exert control. The inhabitants of the realm, guardians of this knowledge, treated them with an almost sacred respect. Rituals were devoted to the activation and preservation of these artifacts, silent moments in which time seemed suspended and the air thick with an energy palpable only to those attuned to the environment. These practices revealed a relationship of balance, an understanding that technology was never meant to dominate, but to coexist in harmony with the natural world. For the first explorers, these mysteries became a source of awe and bewilderment. Accounts speak of discoveries that challenged their beliefs, forcing them to question the notion of linear progress and the limits of human knowledge. After all, how could a society so isolated have developed such sophisticated techniques while at the same time maintaining a life so simple and serene? This apparent contradiction is part of the enigma of the subterranean realm, a place where science and spirituality, technique and contemplation coexist in balance, weaving a delicate web that sustains life within. And perhaps, it is in this very balance that the true wonder lies. As you listen, imagine yourself standing before these mysterious artifacts, touching cold, radiant surfaces, feeling a faint vibration flow through your fingertips, and contemplating symbols that seem to speak in a language forgotten by time. Allow this image to quiet your mind, opening a space for silence and reflection. As the subterranean realm unfolded in all its complexity, it wasn't long before the surface became aware of it, albeit in subtle and fragmented ways. The relationship between these two worlds, the visible above and the hidden below, was neither simple nor static. It was woven from delicate threads of alliances, tensions, and sometimes deep misunderstandings, reflecting not only physical differences but also cultural and spiritual contrasts. The first contacts were discreet, almost secret, marked by furtive encounters and careful exchanges. The inhabitants of the underground, aware of the impact the surface might bring, maintained an attitude of caution and respect. They sought to preserve their autonomy and way of life, avoiding the risk of being absorbed or destroyed by the haste and noise of the world above. On the other hand, some surface dwellers saw in the subterranean realm a source of wisdom, riches, and ancient secrets. These encounters led to small alliances, bridges built through cultural and material exchanges. Gifts were offered, knowledge was shared in carefully measured doses, and trust, though fragile, began to bloom amid the silence of the caves and the distant lights of cities. However, as with any complex relationship, conflicts also arose. Deep differences in values, worldviews, and priorities caused inevitable clashes. The fast-paced, often aggressive rhythm of the surface collided with the serenity and respect for time found below. Unbridled exploration, insatiable curiosity, and even greed threatened to break the delicate balance, creating tensions that echoed through the silent corridors of the realm. These conflicts, though rare, left lasting marks. Some passages were blocked, communication was interrupted, and mutual distrust grew, further separating the two worlds that, at heart, needed each other to fully understand one another. What becomes clear is that, despite the differences, there were moments when collaboration brought benefits to both sides. Exchanges of knowledge helped solve problems, technologies were adapted, and coexistence, even if sometimes tense, allowed both worlds to evolve, each in its own way. As you listen to these words, try to feel the weight of these relationships, the delicacy of agreements, the force of confrontations, and the hope contained in small gestures of understanding. It is a slow dance between worlds that, though separated, are profoundly connected. Perhaps this story invites us to reflect on our own relationships, with others, with the unknown, and with what lies beyond what we can see. And to learn that, often, respect and patience are the foundations that sustain invisible bridges between different realities. Time, that silent and relentless guardian, has the power to transform living stories into blurred memories, and memories into almost invisible shadows. This is what happened with the subterranean realm, a place that once pulsed with life, mysteries, and encounters, and that, gradually, faded from collective knowledge, forgotten by the surface and relegated to the yellowed pages of the past. But why did such a singular realm, so rich in life and wisdom, end up lost in the mist of oblivion? The answer, as so often in history, is a delicate combination of factors, a weave of human nature, external forces, and the Earth's own rhythm. First, the isolation that had kept the realm protected also contributed to its disappearance. The entrances, few and difficult, required courage and knowledge to be accessed. Over time, the paths that led there were lost among debris and vegetation, while the stories that could guide the curious became increasingly rare, fragmented, or disbelieved. Moreover, the tensions between the underground and the surface world, which had once created alliances and conflicts, eventually led to mutual withdrawal. Fear of unrestrained exploration, growing distrust, and the conscious decision of the subterranean inhabitants to preserve their home in secrecy culminated in a voluntary silence, a retreat into the shadows, so that their existence could continue without external interference. This silence was, paradoxically, both an act of protection and an invitation to forgetfulness. The absence of contact and communication caused the realm to become a distant legend, a story for few, even for the explorers who had once dared to descend its entrance. Gradually, the realm was left behind, like a dream the human mind chooses not to remember in order to move forward. Another important factor was the shift in humanity's interests and priorities on the surface. The 19th century gave way to new times, where accelerated industrialization, wars, and social transformations redirected attention to other horizons. The mystery of the underground, so fascinating in an age of discoveries and explorations, became a forgotten curiosity, eclipsed by the advances and challenges of a rapidly changing world. And there is also the Earth's own rhythm, which does not stop. Slow but constant movements may have altered access to the realm, collapses, geological shifts, or even the passage of time itself, reshaping landscapes and erasing traces. Nature, in its wisdom, may have chosen to protect that secret, hiding it beneath layers of earth and stone. As you listen, allow this idea of forgetting to settle not as a permanent loss, but as part of a natural cycle, an invitation to patience, to waiting, and to contemplating what may emerge when we are ready to listen again. Because forgetting is not merely absence, but also space for rebirth, for the rediscovery of secrets that time preserves in its silence. Even shrouded in the mantle of oblivion, the subterranean realm left behind subtle echoes, fragments that persist in the silence and shadows, discreet clues for those who know where and how to look. These are traces that withstand the passage of time, like small keys to a nearly lost past, inviting a silent and reverent rediscovery. These traces are not always grand or obvious. Often, they are small details, faded inscriptions on forgotten stones, objects scattered in silent caves, or even subtle changes in the landscape that hint at the hidden presence of something greater. To distracted eyes, these signs may seem insignificant, but to those who listen closely, they tell stories that span centuries. The first explorers, with their journals and detailed accounts, left invaluable records. In their notes, they describe strange symbols carved into walls, fragments of tools made from unusual materials, and remnants of constructions covered by the dust of time. These pieces of evidence, though fragmentary, point to a complex and sophisticated civilization whose existence stretches far beyond what the surface could imagine. Additionally, there are oral accounts that have survived in nearby communities, stories whispered around fires about mysterious encounters, caves that seem to have a life of their own, and ancient objects that carry a different energy. These narratives, though wrapped in mystery and metaphor, offer valuable clues that feed the imagination and curiosity. Another kind of trace is found in environmental changes, rock formations that appear to have been shaped by human hands, underground rivers following unexpected courses, and areas where the flora shows unusual characteristics, possibly influenced by ancient human presence. These natural indicators are, in truth, silent witnesses of an interaction between humans and the underground, a relationship that left subtle yet enduring marks. As you listen, imagine yourself following these clues with slow, careful steps, feeling the weight of history in each fragment you discover. Allow the mystery to envelop your mind, awakening the sensation of being on the verge of uncovering something ancient and precious. Because even in the absence of certainty, these traces invite us to keep alive the flame of curiosity and wonder. They remind us that beneath the surface of what we know, there is always something to be discovered, a secret waiting to be revealed with patience and respect. The subterranean realm, though forgotten by many, never ceased to fuel the imagination and curiosity of scholars, explorers, and researchers throughout the centuries following its initial discovery. Those traces and accounts, even fragmented, planted seeds that germinated into various attempts at rediscovery, each imbued with hope, mystery, and, at times, silent frustration. The first decades after the revelation were marked by careful expeditions, led by scientists and adventurers attempting to remap the region, locate the entrances, and understand what had been lost. They often encountered treacherous terrain, blocked passages, and records that seemed contradictory, as if the realm itself were hiding on purpose, challenging human persistence. Geological and archaeological studies sought to understand the natural and artificial formation of the structures found, attempting to differentiate what had been shaped by humans from what the earth had sculpted over millennia. These investigations revealed fascinating clues but also raised questions that remain unanswered, fueling debates among specialists about the true nature of that hidden world. Over the years, various theories emerged, some based on concrete evidence, others on speculation blending science and myth. Some claimed the subterranean realm was an ancient lost civilization, others viewed it as a spiritual refuge, and still others saw it as a space of transition between the physical and the invisible worlds. Despite the difficulties, fascination never waned. Documentaries, books, and academic articles sought to keep the flame of interest alive, bringing the public and the scientific community closer to this silent enigma. Some modern expeditions employed advanced technology, scanners, digital mapping, and underground drones, but even with these tools, the realm continued to reveal its secrets slowly, demanding respect and patience. Moreover, accounts from local residents, guardians of oral traditions, enriched the research with stories straddling the thin line between reality and imagination. This convergence of sources added a human dimension to the mystery, reminding us that the subterranean realm is not only stone and silence but also living memory and culture. As you listen, imagine these teams of explorers, equipped with tools and dreams, advancing carefully through dark corridors, following ancient maps and subtle signs, on a quest that is as much external as it is internal. Feel the mix of anxiety, fascination, and reverence that permeates each step of this journey. In the deep silence of the subterranean realm, where stone meets shadow and time seems to dissolve, stories are also born. Delicate narratives whispered across generations, wrapping that place in a veil of mystery and magic. These legends, told in low and measured voices, invite us to dive not only into the physical world, but also into the imagination that the realm has awakened and continues to nourish. The first stories emerged among the inhabitants of the underground themselves, passed down orally as intangible treasures. They spoke of invisible guardians protecting the entrances, ancient spirits guiding travelers' steps, and luminous creatures dwelling in the depths, illuminating paths with their soft, mysterious light. These accounts carried a profound sense of respect, as if the realm were a sacred space where the human and the magical met. Over time, as these tales reached the surface, they intertwined with other local traditions, creating a rich and varied mosaic. Neighboring peoples began to tell their own versions, often weaving together fact and fiction, reality and dream. These legends grew like invisible roots, connecting the subterranean realm to the culture and identity of surrounding communities. Some stories spoke of secret passages leading to parallel worlds, others of treasures hidden beneath the earth, waiting for a pure heart to discover them. Some recounted ghostly encounters, voices echoing without visible origin, and a constant sense that the realm was not entirely uninhabited, that something beyond human comprehension resided there. These legends did more than entertain. They also taught lessons about humility, patience, and the importance of silence. They were a way to keep the memory of the realm alive, safeguarding its secrets while celebrating them in gentle, evocative words. As you listen, let these stories slowly enter your mind, like a soft breeze cradling the spirit. Imagine the low voices around a fire, the dancing glow of flames reflected on the attentive faces of listeners, and the feeling of standing before an ancient, almost forgotten secret. 4 legends are bridges linking the past to the present, the known to the unknown, the real to the imagined. They are, perhaps, the most human way to keep a mystery alive, allowing it to continue inspiring, calming, and wondrously enchanting. The accounts of explorers and witnesses of the subterranean realm are precious fragments that allow us to glimpse a world previously unseen, a space where the extraordinary blends with the everyday, where silence is full of meaning, and every step reveals a new mystery. These voices, captured in diaries, letters, and memories, invite us on an intimate journey, where discovery is made not only through the eyes but through the sensitivity of the heart and mind. Each account carries a mixture of fascination, reverence, and sometimes a subtle unease, a natural response to the unknown. Explorers describe the first impression they had upon crossing the narrow entrance, the damp cold that enveloped them, and the faint glow of crystals lighting the way, creating a scene that seemed lifted from a lucid dream. There are detailed descriptions of dark corridors, vast chambers with sculpted pillars, and inscriptions on walls that seemed to whisper silent stories. But also of the sounds, the steady drip of water, the distant echo of footsteps, and the silence that was not empty but vibrant, filled with a mysterious energy that permeated everything. Some explorers highlight encounters with the realm's inhabitants, describing them with respect and admiration. They recount conversations made through gestures, glances, and soft sounds, moments of deep connection where time seemed suspended, revealing a subterranean society with serene wisdom and a way of life that defied the haste of the world above. Other accounts speak of nearly indescribable sensations, the feeling of being in a place that exists on multiple levels simultaneously, a fusion of past and present, visible and invisible. There are mentions of experiences that seem to surpass the limits of rational understanding, as if the realm were a portal to a broader reality, where the senses expand and perception becomes heightened. These testimonies, written in a gentle and introspective language, are far more than scientific or adventurous reports. They are invitations to contemplation, to slow our pace, and to open ourselves to the mystery that inhabits both the world and ourselves. As you listen to these words, imagine being there, walking slowly through these corridors, feeling the texture of the walls, hearing the silence that speaks, and sharing a moment of reverence with those who came before us on this journey. Let this image calm your mind and prepare your spirit for what is yet to come. The story of the subterranean realm, with its mysteries, discoveries, and eventual forgetting, is more than a distant account or an archaeological curiosity. It is a silent invitation to reflect on our own lives, on the way we relate to time, space, and the unknown that inhabits both the world around us and our inner world. One of the deepest lessons we can draw from this story is the importance of respect. Respect for the environment, for differences, and for the natural rhythm of things. The subterranean realm, with its delicate harmony between humans and nature, shows us that survival and beauty depend on the ability to coexist, to listen before acting, and to preserve before consuming. This hidden society, which lived in silence and balance, teaches us about patience. In an increasingly accelerated world, where everything is urgent and immediate, the subterranean realm is a reminder that some things reveal themselves only when we give them the necessary time. Patience is not passivity, but an active way of being present, allowing the mystery to unfold at its own pace. Another point for reflection lies in memory and forgetting. The way the realm was lost to the world above shows us that forgetting can be both a loss and a protection. Sometimes, silence and distance are necessary to preserve what is valuable, to prevent haste and neglect from destroying what is fragile and precious. Furthermore, this story invites us to look beyond what is visible and immediate. The subterranean realm is a symbol of the invisible that exists within each of us, our fears, our dreams, our hidden parts. To know this place is, in a way, an invitation to explore our own subterranean spaces with care, courage, and tenderness. As you listen, allow these reflections to gently penetrate your mind. Imagine the realm not only as a physical space but as a metaphor for the inner dimensions we often forget to visit. Feel the calm that comes from accepting mystery, the beauty that resides in silence, and the depth that exists within every shadow. Now, after having walked together through the silent corridors of the subterranean realm, after having come to know its lives, its mysteries, and its forgetfulness, it is time to contemplate what this story leaves us with. Not in haste, but with the calm that accompanies serene, almost philosophical understanding. The subterranean realm, which emerged from the depths of the earth and memory, is more than a forgotten physical place. It is a subtle metaphor for the invisible layers we all carry, the hidden spaces in our soul, the stories that dwell in the shadows of the past, the secrets that reveal themselves only to attentive silence. Just as this realm was discovered, admired, and lost to time, we too go through phases in which parts of ourselves emerge into the light, only to withdraw again, in a natural cycle of revelation and concealment. There is no rush in this movement. There is only the eternal dance of being, unfolding to the rhythm of time, with patience and respect. As you close your eyes, allow yourself to feel this deep connection with the earth, with mystery, and with yourself. Let the tranquility of the subterranean realm envelop your mind, clearing away noise and opening space for the quiet that dwells within you. In this silence, questions without answers may arise, forgotten memories, dormant dreams. And that is okay. For silence does not demand conclusions. It simply embraces what is, in its pure essence. The subterranean realm reminds us that there is beauty in the unknown, strength in patience, and wisdom in forgetting. That the true encounter happens when we stop seeking in haste and begin to listen with attention. Mesmo depois de séculos envolto em silencio e esquecimento, o reino subterrâneo deixou legado que, embora sutil, ressoa nossos dias. Esse legado não se manifesta em monumentos grandiosos ou documentos oficiais, mas em pequenos fragmentos dispersos, na cultura, na memória coletiva, e na forma como, inconscientemente, nos relacionamos com o mundo e o nosso redor. A uma presença delicada, que satiria, que nos convida a refletir sobre o que permanece quando o tempo passa, e sobre a profundidade dos vínculos invisíveis que atravessam gerações. Em diversas regiões próximas à antiga localização do reino, ainda persistem tradicos, símbolos e práticas que parecem ter raízes naquela civilização oculta. Festivais silenciosos, rituais de reverência à terra, mitos sobre guardiões das profundezas e contos de passagens secretas. Tudo isso campo tecido cultural que, mesmo que não reconheça diretamente suas origens, mantém viva a essência de relação respeitosa entre homem e natureza. Essas expressões culturais, muitas vezes consideradas folclore ou superstição, são na verdade ecos ancestrais, lembretes velados de uma sabedoria que ultrapassa o tempo. Além disso, o legado do reino subterrâneo se manifesta no convite que nos faz para desacelerar e redescobrir a paciência. Em mundo que valoriza a velocidade e a produtividade, essa história nos lembra do valor do silêncio, da observação atenta e do respeito pelo ritmo natural das coisas. A forma como aquele povo vive em equilíbrio, sem forcar nem apressar a natureza, sugere que a modo de existência mais harmonioso é possível. A modo que reconhece a interdependência entre todos os seres e as forças que nos cercam. Na ciência, o mistério do reino subterrâneo inspira pesquisadores a explorar as fronteiras entre arqueologia, ecologia e antropologia, buscando compreender não apenas os vestígios físicos, mas também as conexões simbólicas e espirituais. Estudos recentes em campos como a copsicologia e a arqueologia experimental destacam a importância de olhar para essas civilizações antigas não apenas como curiosidades do passado, mas como fontes de conhecimento para o presente e o futuro. A arte contemporânea também encontra nesse legado campo fértil para a inspiração. Pintores, escritores, músicos e cineastas se debruçam sobre as narrativas e imagens do reino, transformando as obras que buscam captar a atmosfera de mistério, serenidade e maravilha que permeia essa história. Esses criacos, por sua vez, ajudam a manter viva a memória, aproximando o público de uma experiência sensorial e emocional que transcende o mero relato factual. Enquanto você escuta, permita-se sentir essa continuidade suave, como esse, mesmo distante no tempo e no espaço, o reino subterrâneo se será a través das eras, tocando suavemente o presente. Que essa conexão traga conforto, despertando uma sensação de pertencimento a algo maior, uma rede invisível que passado, presente e futuro. Essa história nos convida também a olhar para dentro, a reconhecer os nossos próprios reinos subterrâneos. Aquelas partes ocultas de nós mesmos que guardam segredos, dores e sabedorias. Assim como o reino físico precisa de silêncio e cuidado para sobreviver, nós também precisamos cultivar momentos de pausa e introspecção para manter nossa integridade e equilíbrio. Portanto, o legado do reino subterrâneo é duplo. Externo nas marcas que deixam na cultura e no ambiente, e interno, na inspiração que oferece para uma vida mais consciente e serena. Ao compreendermos e honrarmos esse legado, abrimos espaço para que novas formas de convivência e compreensão floresçam, não apenas entre nós, mas também como a terra e como o mistério que nos cerca. Em meio ao ritmo acelerado do mundo moderno, essa lembrança é convite gente para desacelerar, para ouvir o silêncio e para reconhecer a beleza que existe no invisível. Pois é nesse espaço que o verdadeiro aprendizado acontece. No encontro entre o visível e o oculto, entre o conhecido e o que ainda está por descobrir. And so we reach the end of this journey through the subterranean realm, a space made of shadows, silence, and secrets, but also of life, mystery, and wisdom. The story we have heard, though it may seem distant in time and space, is a gentle breath for the soul, a quiet invitation to slow down, reflect, and open your heart to what we often overlook. Throughout this journey, we traversed visible and invisible worlds, discovered ancient constructions, delicate creatures, enigmatic technologies, and complex relationships between realms. All of this reminds us that reality is far greater than what the eyes can perceive, that mystery is a fundamental part of existence, and that beauty resides both in what is revealed and in what remains hidden. Now, the story transforms into silence, a space where you can rest, let questions settle, and feel deep calm take hold. May this tranquility be a safe refuge, a moment to nourish the spirit, renew the mind, and find gentle, lasting peace. Feel how the story of the subterranean realm can inspire your own steps, in how you relate to time, space, others, and yourself. May it awaken in you the desire to explore your own inner worlds, to listen to the silences, and to cherish the small mysteries of everyday life. Thank you for sharing this moment with me, for opening your heart and mind to this narrative that is at once strange and familiar. If this story touched something within you, know that you can return to it whenever you wish, like a quiet refuge amid the noise of the world. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so we can continue bringing stories that soothe and enchant. And, of course, your comments are always welcome. Here, your words find a peaceful place to flourish. Now, close your eyes. Let this surreal reality fade away into the mist of your dreams. Good night.